One of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to trading, one of the biggest myths, is this idea that you have to put on these automatic stop losses. You have to have these stop losses in place to protect you. You know, somehow that stop loss is going to save you from some outlier event, and it's going to actually save you money. And this is an absolute lie. I don't think most people actually realize this, but stop losses actually cost you money. They actually prevent you from making the most amount of money trading. So I've mentioned a couple of times on video that I don't like using automatic stop losses. I don't recommend you guys using automatic stop losses. And I've gotten this question, you know, hey, isn't an automatic stop loss for risk management? It's a safety measure? Wouldn't that actually help me in my trading? And the answer is no, it actually does harm to your trading. And I can actually prove this. Let me go over to my web browser. I'm going to go to TASTYTRADE's look back tool, which is their back testing website here. I'm going to go to advanced back testing. Let's enter a symbol. I'm going to enter a symbol for SPY. So that's the S&P 500 ETF. And let's just do a standard trade. So I'm just going to do a 20 delta short put on at 45 DTE, a pretty standard short put trade. So one of the things we know will really enhance our profitability on any trade, but especially our short options trades, is we don't want to hold all the way to expiration. We want to exit early. So I'm going to choose yes to exit early at 21 DTE. So I'll put it on at 45 DTE. I'll take it off at 21 DTE, and I'm not going to set a stop loss, and I'm not going to set a take profit. So let's go ahead and run the simulation here. And this is putting on these trades every 45 days, and it's running from January 1st, 2006 to June 22nd, 2024. And you can see these 20 delta short puts, they have a 94% win rate. That is insanely high for a 20 delta put. Not only do we have a 94% win rate, look at the profit per trade. $53 on average is our profit per trade, and there were a total of 454 trades taken during that time period. You can see our largest loss was February 2020. That was the COVID crash, so the market really dropped, and of course it blew through whatever short put was on at that time, and it actually cost us $7,200 in that one trade. But that one trade was still just one trade. The other 453 trades, you know, overall we still made money. We made a lot of money doing those short puts and not taking a stop loss. But you know what? That largest loss really scares me. Let's go ahead and run the simulation, and let's add a stop loss. So let's go ahead and add a stop loss, a percentage of our debit or credit. So I'm going to say that, you know, typically with short options trades, people will put a either 2x or a 3x stop loss. Let's go ahead and do a 200% stop loss. So if I receive $1 selling that put, I'm going to stop out automatically when my loss reaches $200. It's essentially how that's going to work. Now, all of you guys that, you know, think stop losses are actually going to protect you, and I'm going to lose so much less money, so obviously my profit's going to be way higher with the stop loss. Well, let's run it and see. I think you're going to be really shocked at both the win percentage and the profit per trade. So the win percentage was 94% without the stop loss. Look, it's 83% with the stop loss. That means 11% less winning trades. That's 11% trades that probably did win had I not had the stop loss, because a lot of those trades that get stopped out actually do come back and eventually become winners. Also, you'll notice the largest loss is $1,400, April 2022. Now, that was a bear market. I don't know why I lost so much money in that particular trade, because we had the stop loss. But remember, stop losses, typically, you know, these are market orders, and you're not guaranteed to get filled on your automatic stop loss, because, for example, if the market gaps down, you may not get filled at your stop loss. It may get filled at a much lower price than what you think. Now, the profit per trade is actually about the same. $63. It's actually a little higher with the stop loss, but it's close enough. We'll say it's about the same. But that win percentage, the fact that we win 11% less of our trades with that stop loss. Overall, that's going to be a drastic reduction in profit. And of course, SPY is an index product, right? So the market tends to go up. There's a positive drift to the market. Let's do an individual stock. Let's do one that's been around forever, that's got plenty of data that goes back a number of years. Let's do this with Apple. And let's run the same test on Apple. First, let's go ahead and not do a stop loss. Let's go ahead and set the stop loss to never. We'll do the same 20 delta put on at 45 DTE and taken off at 21 DTE. Let's run the test. And you can see the 20 delta put run on Apple, 92% win rate. That is, again, a very high win rate for something that really should have about an 80% win rate. We actually have a 92% win rate if we sell puts on Apple. You can see total trades 409, largest loss 5,300, again in the COVID crash. Profit per trade about $47. So those are really good numbers. Now let's really mess up these numbers by adding in a ridiculous stop loss. So let's go ahead, add the stop loss. Let's run the test. And you can see, instead of 92%, we only win 79%, a 13% reduction in our winning trades, right? And in this case, profit per trade did go down a little bit. It's still in the same ballpark. SPY, the profit per trade was a little higher, and this one it's a little lower, but both of them are close enough. It's not the profit per trade that's the problem, it's the win rate, right? We win far less by adding that stop loss. So the problem with these automatic stop losses is they get triggered far more often than most people realize. Like if I sell a 20 delta put, right, that thing is going to finish in the money about 20% of the time, meaning I'm going to lose on it about 20% of the time. I'll win on it about 80% of the time, right? That's your standard 20 delta short put. But how often do you think that short put will actually be touched? Like the underlying stock will actually fall to the point where it actually breaches my 20 delta short put. What if I said it will get there about 40% of the time, right? So you'll only finish in the money and lose at expiration about 20% of the time, but that strike will actually get touched about 40% of the time, about twice as much. And this is where the problem with an automatic stop loss comes into play, is because people will sell something like a 20 delta put and they'll set their automatic stop loss where if the price of the underlying falls to the point where it breaches that 20 delta put in this case, that's my automatic stop loss. Let me go ahead and get out of it because, the stock has fallen to the point where my put's about to go in the money. That'll trigger me getting out and that'll protect me. Well, now that I've told you that 20 delta put will be touched about 40% of the time, now that I've told you that, now what do you think about that automatic stop loss? Well, now it sounds pretty idiotic to put on something that's going to get triggered almost half of the time. And this quick shorthand kind of math where you take the delta and multiply it by 2, that's a really quick back of the envelope kind of way to get that probability of touch. If I open up my trading platform, let's go ahead, open up TASTYTRADE, and I go to the Apple options chain. Let's go to the 55 DTE options chain. And if I sell this 21 delta call, how often will Apple rise to the point where it breaches that call? Well, about 42% of the time is going to be, a rough estimate of what that probability of touch is, right? And you can see that's a pretty far out there call, right? Same thing on the put side. If I go to the 16 delta put, that thing's going to get touched about 32% of the time, about 1/3 of the time. 1 out of every 3 of these 16 delta puts is actually going to be touched. So I can't be placing some kind of automatic stop loss at this strike level, right? Because it's just way too likely that Apple will at some point during the life of this trade fall to that point. And a 16 delta put is actually about as low as I typically go. That's my sweet spot, 16 to 30 deltas. And if I go up to like a 32 delta put, well, that thing's going to get touched about 64% of the time, about 2 in 3, right? So about 2 out of every 3 of these 32 delta trades is going to get touched. And if I go 50 delta or above, at that point, it's more than 100% probability of touch because you're already being touched. You're already in the money when you place the trade. So obviously it's 100% at that point. So anything over 50, you don't have to calculate it. You're already in the money at that point, but anything below it, just double it. Like this 43 delta put, about 84% of the time, it's going to be touched. So again, these stop losses, these automatic stop losses that so many of you guys are habitually putting on, I don't think you realize that you are drastically reducing your profits. You probably cost yourselves, in some cases, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars each year, depending on how often you trade and how big of an account you're trading with. This is just bleeding your account dry. And what makes these automatic stop losses even worse is not just they cost you money on your typical everyday trades, but that really big outlier event that you're trying to protect yourself from. Automatic stop losses don't do a good job protecting you from that because, chances are the market's going to move so fast against you, for example, in a crash, that you're not going to get filled at that stop loss level anyway. You're going to get filled at a much lower price anyway as the market crashes down, really hard, or in some cases gaps down overnight or over a weekend. That stop loss wouldn't have helped you in that case either. So in the end, don't use those automatic stop losses. Use mental stop losses. If for whatever reason the pain hurts enough, just get out of it. When you need to get out of a trade. And if you're worried about some weird outlier event, like if the market crashes 20% tomorrow in that underlying, would it hurt too bad? Well, if the answer is yes, don't make that trade, right? In the end, your stop loss is essentially size. That is your stop loss. That's how you protect yourself. You don't use an automatic stop loss at a price level. Your stop loss is the size you enter that trade at. If for whatever reason you're worried about the potential outcome of a trade, you're trading too big. Reduce your size. You'll sleep much better at night. Peace, guys.